part of the Women's Studies Oral History Project. Today is January 28th, 1997. We will be talking with Dr. John Huxford, and we'll begin the conversation by asking Dr. Huxford to restate his name and his affiliation with Valdosta State.
My name is John Huxford. I'm a retired professor emeritus of music in Valdosta State College. I came here in 1966 and retired. Doesn't seem like it's been 10 years. This spring, 10 years ago, 1987.
While you were here, you were also chair of the music department.
Two different occasions, right. And I was also director of the Fine Arts Division.
And during that time, you wrote the music for the school song. Would you tell me how the school song came to be written?
Well, now when you say school song, some people would call a fight song a school song. Other people call the college alma mater a school song. And of course, needless to say, it's two different things. But as it turns out, I wrote both of them. The alma mater came about the time we started up football, and everyone was excited about school spirit and that sort of thing. And I had been thinking for some time that the alma mater that we used, we had our own words written by a couple of women who graduated back around the First World War. And they wrote the words to the Valdosta State alma mater. Of course, originally it was Georgia State Women's College, and was then after that Valdosta State, and so they adapted the words each time, just as they have now that it's a university. But the music that they used was far above Cayuga's Water, which is the alma mater for Cornell University. And that's the standard alma mater that everybody knows, and so many high schools and even colleges do use it. It just seems like to me we ought to have our own melody, you know. So I wrote music that would match the words to what we already had, and so that's the way that came about. The fight song. Actually, I wrote a fight song in 1979, I guess it was, for the basketball team when they won the national championship. And the pep band still plays it, as I understand, at basketball games. But then I wrote a separate one in 82. We started up football. I wrote a fight song then, which, of course, they played their football season. I've written several other fight songs back in the 50s and 60s when I was a high school band director here in Georgia. I wrote fight songs for most of those schools, and then back about 20 years ago, wrote one for Prince County High School in Homerville, which is my alma mater.
I didn't know that. In fact, I didn't know that you wrote the fight songs. I knew you had written the music to the alma mater.
Mm-hmm.
But that was it.
The alma mater, incidentally, if it seems a little bit familiar, it's by design.
No.
Now, I oftentimes don't even think to mention this to anybody, but people will say, you know, that sounds a little bit familiar, but says, I'm not sure where I can place it. Well, the reason why it sounds familiar is because the first 5 notes of the one that I wrote is the same, is a what we would call an inversion of the first 5 notes of the Cornell fight song. See, theirs goes da 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 dum, and ours is da 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 dum. So it's a sort of a first cousin relationship that gives it a little sense of familiarity. Of course, beyond that point, it goes off in its own direction.
Well, now you've made me curious. Have you written any other songs?
Well, I started writing music when I was 8 years old, and my master's degree from Florida State is in music composition. And so I've written quite a few large-scale works for orchestra, for band, written quite a few band things because I was a band director for several years. And since I'm a pianist, I've written a lot of piano music. I have written some songs. One I wrote several years back for Carol Nicholson, Dr. Nicholson over in the music department. From time to time, I have been director of church choirs in Baptist Methodist churches in this area, and have written hymns and anthems for the choirs, and have made arrangements of things like special Thanksgiving music and Christmas music and so on. I've done a lot of arranging over the years. I enjoy arranging because arranging is kind of like, in a sense, it's like a variation. You take something and do a variation of it, do it differently, which is really what speaking is about, is being able to focus in on one idea, but surround it by things that are related so as to reinforce the idea.
Well, that's interesting. When you were chair of the music department for the first time, how many professors were there?
Well, in 1970, Valdosta State College, for the first time, was divided up into schools and divisions. Prior to that time, it was just X number of departments under an academic dean and the president, and that's all there was in the way of an academic structure. And so when the Division of Fine Arts was first organized in 1970, I was the first director for, this was 3 years. First 3 years of its existence, and I decided at that point that I really missed having the chance to write music and keep my fingers in shape with the piano, and I missed the contact with the students, so I went back into teaching. But then there was a need in the late 70s again for someone who headed the music department, so I agreed to go back in there, and I was in the music department for, I believe it was 5 years, and then retired a couple of years after that, maybe 7.
How large was it at that time? Do you remember?
It seems to me, I really don't remember exactly, but it seems as best as I can remember that we would vary between 75 and 95 to 100 music majors. I understand now they have over 150, but of course the entire college or university has grown a good bit. And I believe they have more scholarship resources now than we had back then. There was one time, I remember back, we were needing certain types of students, in certain areas so badly. Kind of like with a football team, you have what we call the skill players. Well, and in a band, you need an oboe player, and if one doesn't come knocking at your door, then you need to go out and get one. And sometimes we would only have $400 or $500 a year for scholarships, which is just a pittance. It's very difficult to compete against Florida State University just across the line, or University of Georgia, what have you. But I'm glad that situation has changed now. And but we had between 75 and 100, I'd say. And when I resigned as department head in 1985, we had, I believe it was about 100, 110 students or majors.
Have you been enjoying the symphony since it was started?
Yeah, and we're looking forward to going this coming Saturday evening here at the Lalo Symphony Espanol, which is one of my favorite pieces for violin and orchestra.
Are there any particular changes that have struck you as important in Valdosta State during the time that you've been here?
Yeah, and I'm sure ultimately for the better, although people like myself, we call ourselves the old timers. We miss the smallness and the closeness that you have in a smaller institution. When I came here in '66, and you know, that's barely 30 years ago, I believe the year before, as I remember, they had something like 1,700 students and less than 100 faculty members. And when the school is a school is that size, the faculty all get to know each other, and the students, for the most part, get to know each other. And you lose a lot of that as an institution gets larger. Of course, as an institution does get larger, it can serve its constituency better by having a greater breadth of offerings and opportunities, so students don't have to go other places in the state or out of state to pursue a particular area of specialization. So, you know, there's some trade-off there, but the intimacy and closeness that we had in the earlier years, I missed that as the college began to grow. And yet it was an exciting time seeing the college grow and seeing the degree programs and areas proliferate and see things, you know, that you wouldn't have dreamed of even 10 years before.
This is just another of those idle curiosity questions. You know, we started out as a women's college. And indeed, there are still more women than men enrolled at Valdosta State. I wonder if that's true in the field of music. You know, I haven't really noticed. But during your tenure, did you perceive, say, more female graduates than male?
I'll be perfectly honest with you, I don't remember. One way or the other, just off the top of my head, I'd say it was about half and half. Because a lot of the young men who were music majors, they, for example, planned to be band directors, and so did a lot of the girls. And a lot of the young women would want to go into professional singing careers or church music, or I had a number of very fine piano students. But again, I'd say probably I had as many male students as I did female. But so I couldn't speak for other institutions. Maybe, you know, you'd have more than one, more of one than the other at some institutions. But just off the top of my head, I can't. There was not enough of a preponderance for me to be able to remember it, I guess is the way to put it.
I was just curious. Is there anything about the changes at VSU that you particularly think is important? I know the growth you have mentioned, but important to those who would like to major in music.
Well, as the department has gotten larger, this means more faculty members, and more faculty members means a greater variety of offerings and courses and areas of specialization. There's certain areas, for example, in the stringed instruments, violin and so on, where a student can now come here and get training in that area, whereas 10, 20 years ago they couldn't. And so the growth has enabled a greater breadth of offering there. We were talking earlier about when I first came here. The year before I came, there were only 2 full-time faculty members in music. And then in 1966, Sandy Campbell, who has a music store here in Valdosta, he and I joined the faculty, and we doubled the size of the music faculty. Suddenly there were 4, and then the next year they hired 2 more, and that made 6, and then 1 more the next year, that made 7. So in a matter of 3 or 4 years, they went from 2 to 7. and by the early 70s, it was up over 10. So we had a spurt of growth right along about that time in the late 60s. I think it was part of the baby boomers, is that what they call them? I think, you know, the first post-World War II generation.
Let me go back a minute to the alma mater. Were you asked to do to change the music? I know that we were moving even then towards university status, and there was a lot of talk about us becoming a university. I mean, was that a factor? Did you think that as a university we ought to have something that was our own, or just have something as our own?
I don't recall any thoughts right offhand about that, and I'm not even sure how it originated. Vaguely in the back of my mind, it seems to me that I suggested to President Bailey that wouldn't it be nice if we've got our own words, maybe we get our own music. And as I recall, he said something like, well, let's see what we can come up with. And he and Mrs. Bailey came over to my office one day, and we went through it, and there seemed to be a general agreement that it was liked. And as I recall, the administrative council, I believe, had to vote on it, and to make a change in something that's basic, because that's been going on, you know, what is this, those ladies wrote those words back close to 80 years ago. So something that's lasted that long, I think they felt that it needed to be discussed, you know.
Well, we have made a lot of changes since then. There's been a mace added to our graduation ceremony, and while I was gone, they changed the symbol of the school. We're no longer the dragons. And I'm not sure exactly what they changed it to. I was reading in the student paper. I think it's a flame that they're now calling it. And I think that was from the students that wanted to change.
What would you call that, a fiery mascot?
I guess. There's some talk, you know, about moving the Camellia Walk and putting in a new dormitory. So they have made some extensive changes. Let me ask if there is anything that you might want to tell people who will be viewing this tape in the future.
You mean with regard to the music department or to the institution in general?
Either way.
Well, needless to say, the bulk of my professional career was spent here at Valdosta State, and I grew up some 35 miles from here. Of course, at that time it was a woman's college, but I have always felt that Valdosta is in an ideal location for many things, education being among them. We're centrally located east to west in the bottom part of the state, as opposed to being off in one corner or the other. I think the capacity that we have for drawing students across the what we call the Wiregrass Georgia Parkway, US 84, and up I-75. The service opportunities that we have as an institution in education, I see this continuing to grow, because I have felt for a number of years that at some point, I don't see how Florida can keep from just sinking into the earth with the people that are moving down there. And at some point, they're going to start backing up and finding out that South Georgia really has essentially Florida climate without the glut of people. And this, I think, is really already happening in many ways. again, it's like seeing the institution grow. I'm not sure how happy I'm going to be seeing that if I'm still fortunate enough to be around at that time. But to be located where it is and to have the type of institution that we have here and the leadership and the community and all, I just see it as an opportunity that I would say 90% of the, or more of the cities our size in the nation would wish that they could be in and have that same type of opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Huxford.
Thank you.
I appreciate your participating in our project. Let me make sure I have got a good view of you, and then we'll hit stop. And it stopped.
Okay.
Okay, very good. And eject. Now, do I have to have a power?
Let's see.
What's it telling me to do here? Okay. This is an interview with Mrs. Katherine Stevens on March 11th, 1996 for the Women's Studies Oral History Project. We will begin by asking Mrs. Stevens to repeat her full name and the organizations she's affiliated with.
My name is Catherine Bergsteiner Stevens, and I am regent of the General James Jackson Chapter, Daughters of the American Revolution. I'm serving my second year as regent. I am past regent of the United Daughters of the Confederacy, Valdosta Chapter number 471. I am interested in these organizations because I am a sort of a history buff, and I am also a real estate broker, and all these researches that I do take me to the courthouse, and it fits well with together with my real estate and my genealogy society. And I've been in DAR since 1982, and
Okay, thank you. I will definitely give her a call. You know, people keep mentioning the arts program here. That, I think, in the physical education that they offered
Well, outstanding.
and made the school very distinctive.
Yeah, because I haven't mentioned the music. I appreciate music, but I didn't participate. But they had Miss Marie Mobb that had a wonderful glee club, and she was responsible for getting some of the good programs here.
I have seen, Virginia Culpepper showed me, some old yearbooks with photographs of the dramatic presentations that were put on, and the costumes, I thought, were really, really interesting. A lot of time and effort must have gone into that.
Oh, yes. And like you said about the Christmas program and then May Day program, they had the English influence and costumes. And even as a child, you know, first, second, third grade, I have pictures of us in our costumes. Because I think first grade, we were butterflies.
Oh, goodness.
Okay. I was talking about May Day, and I think when we were in the first grade, the little girls were all butterflies, because I got pictures of them. And I don't know who made the costumes, but they were lovely. And then I can't remember what we were in second grade, but the third grade, we were riding a cock horse to Banbury Cross. And we had all these English-looking things, and somebody had made us, like children riding those things that look like horses. And that was part of our costume.
Well, I wasn't aware that the training school children took part in the events that,
Yes,
that occurred.
and that helps me. For the second grade, we did maypole. Now, the college girls did maypole dancing too, but we had it sort of scaled down.
You participated in the maypole.
Mm-hmm.
They are thinking about bringing that back, kind of, by having the House in the Woods celebrations. There would be a May Day
Good.
sort of thing.
Well, I went last year to the House in the Woods party, and they had planned to have it over in the new section, in the dining room, and that was not ready. So I've had a letter this year saying that, I think it's sometime in June, that it will be over there. And is it called the Magnolia Room? Or?
That's the biggest room.
Yeah, that's where it'll be. And I know everybody's excited over that.
Have you been in the building to
No,
look
and
at
I
it?
want to. It looks like, when I drive through there, it looks like a gift shop or something I want to see.
There is. It's part of the bookstore. The gifty part of the bookstore that they've moved over there.
Okay, well, I'm going to try to go. Do you happen to know what the hours are? Or?
No, I don't. I do know it is not open on the weekends currently. And so I suspect probably 9 to 5
Yes.
during the
Well,
week.
people refer to this as a college on wheels
Really?
because so many people commute
Yeah.
and are not here on the weekends, unless it's an athletic something.
That's true. I always joke I can find a parking space on Fridays because everybody's going home.
Well, I envy you of your interesting job.
Well, thank you. Like I said, I have enjoyed this, and this is one of those projects that just sort of grew. Each time we interview somebody, we learn something new, and we keep wanting to add to it. But I do think it's important that this history be preserved. I was doing research on suffragettes, and I'm researching on Valdosta suffragettes. And we forget how much these women contributed, how much they did for the community. And I think that Valdosta State has been a central part of that community. So,
Because I think Colonel West White was one of the active women,
yes.
and then the Small Peoples was definitely one. Has anyone mentioned her?
No.
And have you talked to Louis Peoples White?
No, I haven't. I have talked to Mrs. White, but not about that. I'll make a note.
Well, listen, her
how much these women contributed, how much they did for the community. And I think that Valdosta State has been a central part of that community. So,
because I think Colonel West White was one of the active women,
yes.
and then the Small Peoples was definitely one. Has anyone mentioned her?
No.
And have you talked to Louis Peoples White?
No, I haven't. I have talked to Mrs. White, but not about that. I'll make a note.
Well, listen, her grandmother was a mover and a shaker.
Okay. I definitely will add her then to my...
It's Louis Peoples White, Miss Aunt White, and her grandmother was Mrs. Small Peoples. How about, we call Sis West May?
Yeah.
Because she's a charmer.
Mhm. She is. She came and spoke to us about her short time as a student.
Yeah, she got married.
Yeah. But she said, like you, one of the things she noticed was a lack of men.
Oh, mercy.
Said she was very glad when Moody came.
She refers to as Mother Moody.
Mother Moody.
Yes, Mother Moody.
Hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
her first husband was killed in plane crash.
Well, I didn't know
And
that.
so Jackie's her secretary.
I wasn't aware of that. I did notice that in one of the yearbooks they mentioned efforts to help the war effort.
Oh, yes. Bundles
Okay.
for Britain and, you know, socks and sweaters.
Did you all knit, or were
Yeah.
you collecting? You knitted.
We also collected things. I didn't do any knitting, but I rolled bandages.
Mm-hmm. Was this under the Red Cross?
Yes, that was.
Mhm.
I think the knitted things and crocheted things,
Mhm.
there was a club that handled that. I can't remember, maybe the Political Science Club.
Oh, I didn't know they had one. I'll have to look it up.
Now, you're not supposed to be in here.
You smell my puppy? Hmm? My kitty cat?
Another thing, I can't remember a lot about it. We had 2 refugee girls.
Oh, really? Nobody's mentioned them.
Elizabeth Koblenzer was from either Germany or Austria and was a Jewish girl.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had an English girl, Dorothy Vader, sounds like somebody from Star Wars. But I won't say her name, Dorothy Vader.
Uh-huh. Well, they were here for the duration of the war, or just...
They each were here a school term a year.
Okay.
Susie, you know a dog lover.
Yes.
She's 15 years old and blind and deaf in one ear,
Well, bless your
but
heart.
a good dog and strong.
Yes, she looks healthy.
Well, she just got clipped the other day, and the lady that's on American, she said, has Susie been sick? She's so skinny. I said, well, they cut 2 pounds of fur off of her.
You're a pretty puppy.
See
Yes,
how
you are.
opaque her eyes are?
I don't suppose you all were allowed to have pets, that the horses were probably the only thing.
That's it, and stuffed animals.
Oh, really?
Well, you know, girls and kids love stuffed animals. Girls are kids, yeah.
Did you walk to school? Were you...
No, I think I told you I had my
Yes,
grandmother's car, and she lived up in the old part of town. And I drove that car and picked up several friends, took them with me.
Well, it sounds like it was fun.
Well, we had a good time, but we worked.
Okay, let me cut this off.
Oh, you mean we were still doing it?
Yeah.
But, you know, anything else, it's so hard to see, you know, we don't have a lamp right there. That'd be helpful. Thank you.
Okay. This is part of the Women's Studies Oral History Project. Today